Hey, what's up, everybody? This is GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. Back with another episode of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. This is episode number 361 for the 27th of October, 2024. Here with me, as always, I have my erstwhile stalwart partner in crime, Mr. Cowmaster99. How you doing, Tao?
I'm doing well, thank you. And as I'm rewatching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. lately, the background kind of reminds me of it in their command centers with all the screens.
There's a lot of serendipity and coincidence tonight. That is one of the ones that I didn't know about because that is actually the same thing that I'm watching. I've been rewatching the MCU in release order, and so I just finished Phase 1, and I'm watching the movies and the TV shows. And so the next thing in the roster after like a couple of the shorts is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 1. So that's literally exactly the same thing I'm watching.
Nice. I'm actually doing it in chronological order, so of what they're, the time. So I started with, Captain America, obviously, because that's back in the
in Agent Carter.
Yeah, Agent Carter. So, but now I'm on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'll never finish that series. So I think I got like halfway through it, maybe. So I didn't realize there were 7 seasons. Now that I'm watching, I was like, oh wow, it's a lot of seasons. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. Actually, I think even more now than I did the first time around. So these first few seasons.
Yeah, I watched when I've tried to watch it all the way through before. I think I've gotten up to like season 4. Whenever she like actually. So have you watched it before?
I watched up until like the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay, all right. So I'm not spoiling anything. So I watched it up until like she like becomes an Inhuman and like manifests her powers.
Right.
And I think I started the season where it like starts off where she's like in the safe house or whatever. And then that's where I like dropped off with my rewatch at the time.
Yeah, they even teased that in the first season that there's something special about her. So that's actually kind of interesting that even back on the first season they teased it.
Yeah, but it's awesome. So I mean, you've done a good chunk of your rewatch of the MCU then, if you're that far.
Yeah, I watched most of the movies. I think. I actually got through a couple of the movies afterwards because I didn't realize at the time that they had put the Netflix series in there too now, as main MCU canon. So those are in there. So now I have to go and watch. I think Daredevil is my first series I'm going to watch, and I watched the first season. Then I didn't get to watch the second, and I think there was a third season maybe. But so yeah, I'll get into those after Shield.
Yeah, I've watched most of the Netflix stuff except I don't. Well, I did watch the first season of The Punisher, but I never watched like the second season. I'm not sure if I've watched all of Jessica Jones, but yeah, it's a lot of content to chew through. So speaking of a lot of content, let's get started with the rundown in segment 1, our primary gamer experience stories for the past week. And Tao, you are probably playing one of the biggest splashes that are out there on the market this past week with Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Yes. So 5 minutes in, and we're finally getting to games. It's going to be a good show. That's all right. I'll take up the rest of the show with Call of Duty talk. But yeah, so started my playthrough of 6, and actually, I started one thing I haven't done in a long time is play the campaign in any of the Call of Duty series, really, except for I think the last one. I can't even remember the last one I actually finished. I guess Ghosts. No, not Ghosts. There was one of the ones that was like a future. Kind of semi, near future one that I finished with. What was the guy from the Netflix series? I can't remember his name now. He was like the big bad.
I think you're talking about Advanced War with Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, Advanced War. That was the last one I actually played through and actually finished. And then
I think it's Advanced War. It could be Infinite War. That was when I was like off of Call of Duty, so I barely keep it straight, like what those iterations were. So I'm pretty sure it's Advanced War, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Advanced Warfare, and then the next one was Infinite, I believe, with Kit Harington. So Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. I played a little bit. I started that one. I never finished that one though. So that was probably the last one I actually played. Just even though I didn't finish it. So it's been a while. But I'm actually going through the campaign now on Black Ops 6 and having a good time with it. Like, and I know they're like usually super short, like 6 to 8 hours, for the most part, or at least the ones that I had played and that I heard of. And I think this one's probably still around that same time, maybe maybe an extra hour or two, who knows? Because it's a little different. Like there's like a little hub world now, like that you can kind of go into, which I don't know, since I haven't played any in a while. I don't know if they kind of did that in some of the older ones, or if they did anything like that with the reimaginings of the Modern Warfare series. But uh, yeah, as you go through like a couple of like two, maybe three levels, and then you kind of get to this hub world, which is basically just a house that you find. Um, that kind of fits within the story. So you kind of just walk, you can walk around the house and there's like secrets and stuff, evidently, because there's like a black light that you can kind of carry around and like flash, at places, and the like, something comes up like secret code or something. So I haven't figured out all those, and I probably won't unless I look it up, because unless it's unless they reveal it as the story goes along, because I haven't really seen anything so far. There's like one kind of puzzleless thing that I was able to kind of figure it out. There's like a generator that you have to get working. I kind of got that working, but it's kind of not. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure that stuff out. But uh, say what you will about the campaigns and how short they are, but man, when you're playing them, it's just like, you're playing a movie, there's all these, action stuff happening. And even like when I played like Ghosts and Infinite Warfare, I think those are probably some of the like the weaker ones, supposedly, the majority of people out there. But I mean, I enjoyed them just because of the spectacle of these, the campaigns, it's big explosions, and, have to escape from something. So you're in a vehicle and shooting helicopters, or other cars with the enemies in them and stuff like that. So that pretty much happens here in those first few campaign missions that I've done so far. I think I finished the fourth one either last night or the night before, the fourth level. So I'm pretty good ways in, long, obviously longer than any of the other ones I've done so far, but having a good time with that. And I usually don't do that just because I don't really know like kind of the overarching story for the Black Ops, because obviously you still have some of the character, actually probably most of the characters from the first one. I think the main character from the very first Black Ops series is still in there, and some other characters that have come along the way. So I was like, I'll just jump in, whatever. Maybe I'll go back and just watch some YouTube videos of some of the other ones. I started the original Black Ops campaign. I could probably got like 3 or 4 missions into that. Probably not even, maybe like 2 or 3. So I kind of know what's going on, but I'll just go through this campaign. That's fine. So I've been doing that, and haven't. I know kind of overall there's been some issues with, I guess mostly on Steam, maybe, some like just like startup of the game, initially. And I didn't realize this either, but I guess the campaign is online only. Like you have to be online to play the campaign, evidently, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing, but I'm always online, so it doesn't really matter to me. Um, and I guess that's a big fervor online. There's been some graphical hitches and just, I guess, issues with just starting the game in general. Like I said, once again, I think mostly on Steam, and that could just be because obviously they usually haven't released on that platform before, so maybe there's some issues there. But in any case, I haven't really seen anything, at least on the campaign. On the zombies and multiplayer side, which I've also played, I'll talk about those in a second. I've seen some like freezes, and I don't know if that's just something with my system, maybe, or if because I haven't really seen anything about that. And it'll freeze for like 5-10 seconds, and then it'll just start going again. It's fine. So not a big, I mean, kind of a big deal if I can play in multiplayer, because that can, I'm gonna get shot up and killed, but that's fine. I've only seen that handful of times, probably not even that, like 3 or 4 times so far. So, and maybe that hopefully gets fixed with patches or whatever updates. Like I said, assuming it's even the game itself, it could just be my system. I don't know, but I haven't seen anything about that happening in the online or anything. So. But so yeah, been playing campaign, and then zombies I've also been playing, which I haven't really done maybe a couple times. Like I played, I think World at War, I played a little bit, and then in Black Ops 3, I believe I played a little bit also, like a very little, like just a few times just to try it out. I was like, I don't, I had never done it before, I hadn't done it in a while. So I was like, I'll give it a try. This one I jumped into, I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give it a go this time around, because it kind of looked like I've seen some videos. It looks like the areas, like when I was playing on those 2 games, the areas are pretty small, and just the waves of zombies that come at you were just kind of ridiculous. So I was like, well, this is looks a little bit more open. You kind of have to open sections as you're playing through these zombie rounds, which is fine, But after you get like, I think it's like 3 or 4, kind of like they're basically like energy shields that you have to open up, and you just pay like in-game currency to open these things up as you're leveling up. Once you get those open, it's a pretty big area that you're playing in. At least the one map I've done. There's only 2 maps right now. Liberty Falls, which is the only one I've played. I think I played about 3 rounds right now of that, and then one called Terminus, which I believe was in the other games. From what the one guy I was playing with the other day, he was saying that was from one of the older games. I don't know if Liberty Falls was or not. I don't think so. It didn't seem like it. But yeah, I was just playing those, and they're basically just. And I guess the big thing is it's round based now. So just you have a round, there's a ton of zombies, horde of zombies that come at you. You got to clear them all out, and then the round, and then the next round starts, and it's just kind of the same thing. Yeah, obviously there's different enemies though. It's not just all zombies. There's like these weird like spider crab creatures and bosses, kind of mini bosses and bosses and stuff like that. So they give you a good variety of different enemies to take down. And then of course, you're trying to power up your weapons as you go along. There's different like little machines you can run to update either the rarity or just like the ammo, which you can get like explosive ammo, electric ammo, or freeze ammo, stuff like that, or just like overall the power of the ammo itself, just make it stronger. So so they got that going. Then there's these I guess it's like, well, they have field upgrades, which is kind of like normal that you get in the Call of Duty campaign or multiplayer. I think in the campaign too, and they just don't call them field upgrades. Just like special abilities or whatever, or special technology that you can use, like like an electric shock stick that you throw down. Obviously, if something comes near it, it's it's electrifying the enemies, or just some other things. Which that's the only one I've seen so far. I know I have a bunch of them, and you can go into the customization thing and like switch stuff out and do different ones and stuff like that. So and then there's these other things called not gumballs, but I forgot what they're called, gumballs or something like that. Basically, it's like another special ability that you have. Like there's a teleport one, or you make stuff stronger, and there's just like a whole bunch of them. And those also you can customize. That one you have 5 slots that you could put in there, so you get a bunch of them that you can get, but you have to pick only 5 for like each round or each game that you go into, and then you can use those as you play through the game, and you can collect more in the game too. I think up to 3 or 4 altogether. I think you just get like free ones, like that you don't have to buy them or anything. So that's kind of nice. There's also a crafting bench where you can craft like medicine or like a self revive and armor and stuff like that. So if you've ever played Warzone, armor is the same thing. You just collect those little armor plates, and you put them on as you get them. So I think you can upgrade that up to 3, which I believe is the same as in Warzone. So you can do that, and that costs in-game money too. So that's keep it a little fair, I guess, so it's not so easy. And there's little secrets and stuff within the levels themselves that they always put in there, like Easter eggs and other little secret. There's like a vault in both maps, I believe, where you can go in there and you can, you get some kind of, if you beat one of the bosses or mini bosses, it gives you like a key, and depending on the rarity, you get like some kind of special weapon or field upgrade or something like that. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, that's all of zombies I've played so far. Those rounds or those games, though, they've taken the first 2 I played were like at least an hour, and then the last one was like about an hour and a half. So those are long. Those are long play sessions. I guess the good thing now, though, is you can save those now, which is actually kind of nice. And then if you can quit out of it and save it, you can come back to it later on. So, and I think you can do that even if you're playing online. I'm assuming as long as obviously the other people you're playing with are cool with it. That's probably only going to happen if you're playing with people Like the last game I played with was one guy from one of the Discords I'm on, Discord servers, and then one of his friends. So, but we just ended up trying to exit the actual stage itself instead of just saving it. So, which I'm a little fuzzy in how you exit the stage successfully, because so far the few times that I've done it or tried to do it, we failed somehow. Like I don't, like a little chopper comes down when you call in the exit, and like green smoke you have to run to. It's like, all right, so we ran to it both times, but then there's like a ton of zombies just everywhere, and the guys on the radio is like, hey, you got to clear the landed area, and so we're trying to do that, but there's like a ton, and I mean a ton of zombies that just keep coming constantly. So I don't know if that's even possible, or maybe we're not having the strongest weapons. Some of the guys had some pretty strong weapons. Like the one guy even had like the forgot what it was called. It was like a laser rifle or a laser gun basically, and that thing pretty much kills in one hit. But it's just like constant enemies coming at you. So I'm not sure how what you're supposed to really do on that, but figure out, watch the videos and figure it out eventually. And then besides obviously that, I'm playing multiplayer, which I did the beta on when it came out, both betas, the closed, because I was able to get it through. Actually, I got it through Game Pass, but I got it through Xfinity too. And then I played the open beta later on, like a week later when they had it. And I could see they did fix a lot of stuff. Not so much graphically, but just kind of in the movement and gameplay and stuff like that. Especially the the RC car, which was like crazy sensitive, like when you're trying to drive it. And I'm using mouse and keyboard because I'm playing on my PC. I haven't tried playing on my Xbox yet, but I'll probably do that at some point. And it was just like you move slightly with that RC car, like your mouse, and then you would just like turn, like just almost do a 360. It's like, well, what the heck's going on? But looks like they fixed that, so it's not as sensitive. That's nice. The shotguns, which was a big kind of a pain point for me, or negative back in the beta, that seems to be a little bit better. It's not as, I think I had mentioned that it was almost like a really long, not so much reload time, but just each shot that you took, like I think you get like maybe 5 or 6 shots, 5 probably. But just in between each shot, it would seem like it take forever, like to get those shots off. But it seems to be a little bit better now. It's not like super quick, but it's just not as much as a delay as it was before. So that's kind of nice. And I've actually been doing pretty good, which I used to use shotguns all the time and like all the other CODs I've played. But like I was like, I'm not using this like unless it gets fixed, or unless I would use it until I'm able to, unlock the next shotgun, which I think is like a more of an auto shotgun. So but it seems like they've kind of balanced that out now, so that's kind of nice. And then just kind of maps overall. This, I think there was 4, maybe 5 for the beta. I don't think I played all of them. I think some of them were kind of locked into some of the game modes, ones that I didn't usually play. But now, pretty much everything's open. So they have the original maps that they had used during the beta, and then there's a bunch more. There's a good balance of like medium, like I wouldn't even say small. I think most of them are pretty medium, and then there's like at least 2 that I've played so far that are fairly large. I was kind of surprised how large they are. Actually, it's probably the biggest ones I've played in a game before, in a Call of Duty game, and probably perfect for like hard point and domination, stuff like that. So, which I haven't played yet. I haven't played that since the beta. Those ones, since now you can actually, hey, you can pick the modes that you want to play. So right now I'm just playing kill confirmed, um, regular team deathmatch, and kill order, which is the one with each team has like a VIP person that you got to protect. So, and that as soon as that person dies, it just switches to somebody else. So, which I think you had mentioned was a little bit different how they'd worked that mode before. So that's kind of nice that it kind of kind of a push and pull there, that you get respawns basically of that VIP person. So that's pretty fun. I like that map actually. But I might check out the domination and hard points, because I was actually having kind of a good time with those, surprisingly, in during the beta. So maybe eventually I'll do that, and then I'll probably add like free for all eventually. I just wanted to kind of get my feet wet again with Call of Duty, since I haven't really played for a while, and obviously Black Ops since Cold War. So but yeah, those are the 3 modes I've been playing so far, or all those, pretty much all the modes. I might try out Warzone again once they kind of update, to the Black Ops series, whatever that's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be like a total map change, or how that's going to work. But for now, I'm just playing those 3 modes right now.
Have you been able to get a sense of what things that there are in the single player campaign? Like typically there's like weapons unlocks or something that you
Yep.
can get out of the single player campaign that adds into your weapons progression, or gives some other type of tchotchke or whatever in the multiplayer. So have you had a chance to like look that up, or have you become like just aware of it or cognizant of it like in game?
Yeah, so that's actually one thing I forgot about. So now weapon progression it goes through all modes. So if you unlock something on campaign, zombies, or multiplayer, you get it unlocked for everything now. So it's not like an individual thing, which I think it was before, I guess. So yeah, so even like in the campaign, when if I'm just using like an AR, the whole time or whatever, I'll unlock stuff, and that it carries over to zombies in multiplayer, which is actually kind of nice, which I'm kind of surprised at, because zombies, since it's such a long play session, like I unlocked a lot of stuff for the gun I was using at the time, because I finally got to the point. I think after level 4, you get the loadouts in zombies, and I think that might be the same thing for multiplayer. Well, when I finally did that, and I was like, "All right, I'll just use AR. I'll just start with AR and kind of work my way, kind of like I do with the multiplayer. Like each play session, I'll change the gun." But I locked a ton of like a good amount of stuff in there. Not I shouldn't say a ton of stuff, but I did lock a good amount of stuff. So I was kind of surprised. So I'm surprised they haven't. I don't know if they'll tweak that, or if they'll just say, hey, just
Yeah,
leave it in.
it's been like that for a while. In fact, one of the great secrets, if you want to call it that, is often people said, like, look, if you want to get like a bunch of your weapons unlocks, or particularly if you're trying to like work a particular weapon that like in multiplayer matches is just a pain. Like even like especially shotguns or sniper rifles. The often the trick is go farm, in zombies, right? And that's a way to progress through your weapons unlocks and then come back and utilize them in multiplayer. And there's lots of things where um, you will get unlocks in multiplayer that that I don't know, it's add to Warzone, or I can't remember exactly how it works, but there you can get unlocks. But then I think I mentioned, like, when I was playing Modern Warfare 3, right? Part of the problem, or a small nit is, I've got the battle pass. That's it. Like you get the battle pass, and then you get unlocks, and those unlocks are like only applicable to like a certain mode. So it's like I'll be progressing through the battle pass because I'm insistent upon like leveling everything. I'll expend like a battle token getting something that is only usable in zombies, right? But because I'm trying to 100% the battle pass, right, I wind up expending it on that. So now it's been like that for a while. But what there is there are, if you go to a weapon and you look at progressions, or even if you just go to a weapon category, there are sometimes will be like this weapon unlocks like by completing whatever mission in the campaign, or this attachment unlocks by completing whatever mission in the campaign. So I was wondering if you had hit any of those yet that had kind of jumped out at you.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't noticed that yet. If there was anything, as far as I saw, I was kind of looking at like the skins and stuff the other day, last night, I think, and it seems like I don't know. It seems like, I think it was for the shotgun. Like I had to do like, like 5 headshots with the shotgun. It's like I get this skin, and then the next one is just 10, and then it was 15, 20. I just kind of went up in order. I was like, oh, that seems kind of easy. Like I thought it was a little bit more. Obviously with a shotgun too, it might be a little bit harder, but just in general, I was like, I thought each skin would be like something different, but it's basically like one thing, and then it just kind of ups the amount of whatever you have to do, like either 100 headshots, or I think maybe even the sniper was the same thing. Like it was just started with like you have to get 10 headshots, and then it just went to 20, 30, 40. It kind of just went up. So I thought it was different, but I don't. Maybe it's just been a while since I played, possibly.
So a question in the chat from Warwana, he asks, did you complete the campaign house puzzles? They were fun, unexpected in a COD campaign too.
No, yeah, I was talking about that earlier. Yeah, there's some things. There was only like one that I kind of completed. It was kind of in the basement, or I did part of it, but I haven't done everything that's in there. Yeah, that was, like I said, that was kind of cool thing that you can you walk around the mansion, which is kind of like your hub area, where you talk to characters and get your missions and stuff like that. I just thought it was kind of cool that they have something like that now. Call of Duty, obviously, it's in every other game, but kind of nice to have it in there, something different.
So one question I want to ask is, obviously in Modern Warfare, I guess it's Modern Warfare 2, that you have like the Russian, like the Soviet, like airport scene. The big thing that makes people react emotionally and kind of is shocking. So have you come across like that kind of level in Black Ops 6, or are you aware of a level that's like that in Black Ops 6, or just anything that you've come across that kind of hits at like a controversial topic, including like if there's a cultural topic, or like an international topic, like something that highlights like interaction with like people of the Muslim faith, or anything like that, that's kind of shocking, and forces you to kind of think outside your personal bubble sometimes.
Nothing yet, but this is the early '90s that this kind of takes place in, so I can see something possibly coming up, or some kind of twist that's going to happen, as the story progresses. And now, when I started, this is before uh, Bill Clinton's president. Like I think it might be even like the election year or so, where when I started now in the story. So I can see something possibly coming up because I know like even in like in the commercials and the trailers and stuff they show like they're talking about Saddam Hussein and all this other stuff. So I can see something possibly coming up probably fairly soon, maybe within the campaign that people might be. But I haven't heard anything online though either, as far as anything like that. But and there might not be anything like totally big like that.
Well, that was kind of the final question I was going to ask you because I haven't been paying as much attention to like the buzz because I've kind of fallen off the Call of Duty wagon. Um, but and I know that I saw a blurb about like Steam user reviews had come down recently for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 had fallen back to like mixed. Anything that that's being discussed in your Discord or just in the zeitgeist around going back and forth with the multiplayers or anything that's particularly standing out in terms of people's satisfaction with Black Ops 6 or anything from a community perspective that seems to be kind of stirring in a buzz.
Yeah, other than the campaign having to be online, I guess that's how it always has to be online. That was kind of a big thing with the Steam reviews. Along with just, I guess people were just having issues sometimes even starting the game or when they get in the game, there's, they're getting all kind of errors and stuff like that. I think I saw some stuff in the review. I was looking at some of the reviews, I think last night, and some people were having an issue where they were changing the graphical setting. I think it was a DLSS setting, and then they applied it, go out, come back in, and then it didn't save for some reason. Like, okay, like I get it, like you're not going to have that setting, but I'm sure that's going to be patched. Like, cause obviously something's broken there and they're going to fix that. So, but people were, throwing a hissy fit about it. It's like, all right, guys, come on, chill, just chill. Like, I get it. Like, there's certain things that sometimes doesn't happen, but that something like that, obviously it's something's broken within the settings. So I'm pretty sure they're probably going to fix that. It's going to get fixed soon. Other than that, like I said, some people were having issues just starting the game. There's 3 or 4 reviews maybe I saw that, or just comments within reviews. But other than that, yeah, I haven't really seen anything. Just reviews in general, not the user reviews, but like across the board, people are it seems to be having fairly good reviews. I think mostly because of the campaign and multiplayer, and I think zombies too. I've seen some people kind of hating on zombies. I guess they don't like how how it is. Obviously, you can't satisfy everybody, but for the majority, it seems like the regular like site reviews, gamer site reviews, seems to be pretty positive. So and people pretty much are more enjoying it more than the last few, I guess. Campaign wise, maybe not so much multiplayer because I think multiplayer is usually pretty solid, but campaign and zombie wise, people are really liking it so far.
So, a question in the chat where I want to ask: can you guys get me on board as to why blocking the ability to download textures was done in this game, instead forcing us to stream them? I've heard whispers that it's because of the Series S, but I hardly believe that. PC isn't a console, so I thought PC users would be able to turn off texture streaming. To be honest, but I guess from the way he's written it up, apparently PC also can't turn off texture streaming. I would assume based on the way he's written it.
Yeah, I no, that was another thing I did see on there. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I didn't see those rumors about the Series S. I mean, I guess it's possible because we've heard other games that were having issues like that where they're having troubles with the Series S, trying to get that up to snuff. But I haven't heard anything so far on that.
But have you noticed the thing that he mentioned? So the way Call of Duty has operated before, at typically at the outset, you would periodically you will download all textures, right? If you've gotten a bunch of skins or something or whatever, that for whatever reason it hasn't downloaded previously, it'll periodically like go through it. I tend to see this more on mobile, and notice it more on mobile than on the PC version. Although I believe it happens on the PC version too, where it will download all of them. But apparently there's some nit going on here where they're streaming them in. Um, so have you noticed and I guess maybe my other question would then be, have you noticed any kind of a performance hit? Because obviously the whole reason you download them is so you don't get a performance hit during your bandwidth in a multiplayer match or whatever. But anything like that you've picked up on?
I mean, that could be possibly why I was having those freezing issues those few times, possibly. I didn't mention that. But other than that, the only thing I've ever seen, like when I go into the game itself, is and I saw this with Modern Warfare 3 too when I was playing it. Is with it like loads the shaders, but I mean that usually takes like a minute or so. But obviously that doesn't have anything to do with the textures and stuff. That's something different. That was always the thing. But no, yeah, like, other than like the few freezes that I've had during the multiplayer, I mean that could be accounted because of that, because I wasn't able to download it, just outright. And hopefully, maybe that's something they allow going forward if enough people are complaining about it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody's complaining. I think it may just be a matter of Wara noticing, because I do remember, like, in the menu it would give you an option to turn that on and off, and I would always set it so that, right, I would just download textures. And I think
Yeah.
what it is, it's a matter of, if you I guess quite honestly, I've always what I've always noticed is that it was a selectable choice in the menu. I've never actually noticed whether or not, like, or thought about, like, the dynamic impact, right, during a match or during the game. I think the way it works is that, if you, like, say if you're in the middle of a match and you unlock a texture, I think instead of downloading it at some point when you're, like, out of a match or whatever, what it will do is, if you select that camo, then it'll stream it into you right upon demand, I guess. Um, but to be quite honest, it's much more, it sticks out much more in my mind as a matter of control that I've appreciated, because I'm like, that's what I want in PC. I always want control over my experience. Like, you don't decide, you let me decide. But I've never actually thought about how it actually works, right, or what the impact was. So what Arwana says is, for me, it's not an issue to complain about, but it's a slippery slope decision, IMO, where, what do we get forced to do next? And from that perspective, where, like, what it makes me think about is when we lost control of lobbies, right? That's the thing that sticks out in my head, right? When you used to go into, and granted, like, lobbies back then were like 8 people, 12 people or whatever. And you would go into a lobby, and if voice chat were on, and somebody didn't vibe with the group's esprit or ethos, you could kick people like that out, right? That's part of the, like, and since Modern Warfare 2 came along and they took lobbies away, that has been, in my mind, part of the great downfall, right, of Xbox Live and just gaming on the internet, which is that you can't control who you're around and who you're shoulder to shoulder with, and you just get people that come in and ruin the experience. And that's why now nobody talks, right, in video games, and everybody turns chat off, and everybody stays in their player chat, and we just don't associate with each other, which is just a shame. And what I've realized, we've talked about it on this show, what I've realized in, like, the decades since, is to I didn't realize it at the time, but now I think about it and I talk about it from a historical aspect of, like, you need to recognize and acknowledge that was literally a golden era of online, like, that Xbox 360 generation. If you were coming from PC and you remember, right, you were the concept of having the equivalent of PC LAN gaming available globally on the internet was something that breathed a breath of fresh air right into this. Like, it was a wondrous moment. And but what we didn't realize is that it literally lasted from 2005 until Modern Warfare 2, right? And then it was kind of all over, right? And now we talk about that as if sometimes as if it was a lasting thing that was created on the internet, but it really wasn't. It was really just an isolated moment in time. So I don't know. So Wara says, yeah, this would tickle my ears. I don't like having that control pulled. He remembers lobbies, has agreed. It's ruined it for everyone, so a few people don't feel left out. Right. Yeah, exactly. 360 gen COD lobbies, absolute life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
I
Modern
think
Warfare 2.
maybe they were just like, hey, for convenience, we'll just throw you into whatever. Which, yeah, it does kind of suck too sometimes, because it's like you get it like a really good group, but then you potentially won't see them again because it just it just goes into the next one and just match makes for whoever. So unless you're in the party, obviously, but yeah, it just kind of stinks sometimes like that.
So, I mean, going back to the technical aspects of this whole streaming versus loading, what could have happened, and I wouldn't put my Activision in this category, but I will say Microsoft, from the perspective of how they go about implementing change. What I will say is Microsoft and Apple, right, are both of them are great at telemetry and actually know how people use their systems. Although frequently they will take action because of how much somebody uses something, and it will torque off like the uber faithful and the uber geeky and uber nerd. And so, for my familiarity and tracking of Windows, what I will say is Microsoft is great at telemetry in terms of if this texture streaming, right, versus downloading, if it were something people didn't use, if I'm like one of the few people who says no, always download my textures, don't stream them, like that very well could have been something that they pulled if maintaining that capability sucked up a lot of labor effort, right? That was, just wasn't really worth it. So that's possible, but we'll have to see how that goes on and see if people complain about it. Tao, anything more on Call of Duty?
No, just kind of overall, just on the gameplay. They have the new Omni movement um, uh, mechanic now, where basically, you can kind of, as you're jumping, you can kind of like move around and in any direction, as you're looking. And obviously, I played with that, and I'd used it during the beta, and coming back to it now, it was just like it's like I'd been using it now for years. Just kind of it's kind of comfortable thing. It took a few matches to get used to. When I was playing in the beta, and now it's just part of Call of Duty now. And I think it's a good part. I think it's a good addition that they did now. There's obviously tons of videos and stuff you can now capture and stuff, because you do you're flipping over, you're diving across a table and look back, and you can shoot somebody, or as you land, you're on the ground, you can just like 360 move around and look whichever direction. So it's kind of cool, and just kind of a neat feature that, and obviously it's not a new thing, I'm sure it's been in other games, but it's just kind of a cool feature now that they have in Call of Duty.
All right, very cool. Second, see where I'm at. Oh boy, I went for 6.2 to COD PvP. I'm not doing so well. Second story in the not story, but second game that's in the rundown is what I've been playing, which has been Age of Mythology Retold. And so this was one of the points of serendipity that I mentioned, because this is a game that I've come around to that Tao played earlier, a few weeks ago and talked about. So I mean, I've got to say, I've been having an incredibly great time. Um, and most of my shtick in association with this game and just kind of its overall pedigree is I find a ton of enjoyment in any RTS that does things better or different than Age of Empires. I don't know what it is about Age of Empires, but I just tend to not like that game. And I know that part of it is I fell in with a group of people who we used to get together and play play LAN games on a PC. We were working somewhere where internet connectivity was just not like ubiquitous, kind of like it is in the age of broadband. Um, and we used to get together to play, and these guys would always want to play Age of Empires and Galactic what battles or whatever. And it used to just, and like the games would go on for hours. It was like how I feel these days when people invite me to go play Risk, and I'm like, no, man, I'm not interested in like a 3-hour session on a Friday night, like getting down to like the last two guys. Like, I'm just not interested. That's kind of how it was. We would all get together on a Saturday afternoon for a LAN. You'd go in to play a game. Instead of playing like an hour where everybody was playing, you'd spend like an hour, and if you were out early, then you would just sit around while these like the last to dwindle down the last two people, and they were slogging it out, right, with tank rush after tank rush, and it was just I just didn't find the game particularly dynamically interesting. I used to push people to play Empire Earth, but then my other alternative that I really fell in love with was Age of Mythology. I also loved Rise and Fall. Can't remember what the subtitle of that thing is, and I loved Rise of Nations. So those things were all things that kind of came out of like that Age of Empires pedigree and had like spokes back to like the design ethos and original design teams. But Age of Mythology is a thing that I fell in love with, and I'm having a great time with it this time. The way I approach the game is I tend to approach it as one half city builder and then the other half RTS. So I do tend to typically play like several skirmishes where I will try and avoid engaging with the AI militarily in combat until I absolutely have to. It's interesting in these maps, the way they're constructed and the way resources are laid out, that like the first skirmish, and I'm into like my second skirmish now that I'm playing through. The first skirmish, I basically wound up being forced to engage in military action with the AI because gold was wound up becoming scarce. Like I consumed all the gold and stockpiled all the gold that I had available in my territory, and then as I started, I always get to a point where I typically my military forces I build one that is kind of like the home guard. And then I will typically garrison. I'll typically build a second army and garrison them in some type of fort. And then by the time I'm building the third army, I refer to them as like my expeditionary force, and that's the group that's designed to like deploy throughout the map and start knocking out the fog of war areas, and will eventually engage in military action. And so as I sent them out looking for gold, the first gold that I came across was actually gold that was being mined by the enemy AI. I was like, well, I got to keep farming gold, so I guess I gotta go that way. Um, in the second skirmish, it was kind of interesting, and it's always interesting to see what the tipping point is. In the second skirmish, it's just a matter. It's a matter of population. Like I've got 3 town centers that are available. I've hit my population cap, but I've also hit my home building cap. And so the only way I can continue expanding is by taking over another town center. But I don't have any that are visible on my end of the map. And so it's time to deploy expeditionary unit 101, right, and start seeking people out. And I'm like, if I come across a town center that's owned by an AI, then I'm not going to have any choice. So it's really awesome. I will say, definite lesson learned after the first skirmish. Second skirmish, I turned Titans off. They are spectacular. They cause a ton of carnage. It's super interesting. It's a ton of eye candy, in my opinion. They like I don't know if they ruin the game like dynamic, but they definitely they definitely suck all the air out of the room. Like if the enemy drops a Titan, like it's just all stop, all hands on deck. That has to be dealt with. And so the first skirmish was kind of interesting because I had just obtained a Titan. I didn't really know or remember like how they work, and so as I was trying to figure out like where, and I was figuring, okay, well, when I discover like where the enemy like HQ is, then I'll drop a Titan portal. But this guy popped the Titan portal like out of nowhere and way early and caught me off guard, and that thing just started going around, wreaking havoc. I was very fortunate; I was the Egyptians, and so I had I had that home guard army, and then I had the army that was garrisoned in a fort. And so, I deployed one and then I deployed the other. What saved me was that the magical powers the mythological powers that the Egyptians have, you have one where you get like a area, you get a big area of effect, and you can cause that within that area to spawn serpents, and then those serpents go around and attack right any enemy forces. And then I had another power that allowed me, it's like Call of the Ancients or something, and it calls on like your dead ancestors, and then it's got like straight out of Lord of the Rings, and then they rise up and become an army and attack. And then a third power that I had was a meteor shower, and then you could, same thing, you could big ring AoE and you could drop meteors. And I'm like, that saved me because I couldn't manufacture troops and rebuild armies fast enough to take this thing out. Then the other mistake I made was I dropped my own Titan Gate. Of course, I was thinking, well, I'm going to spawn my Titan Gate like in the vicinity of this Titan and get my own Titan in the mix as quickly as possible and then go Titan to Titan. I didn't realize how long it takes to kind of mine, I don't know what you want to call it, mana or whatever, to open that Titan Gate. It takes like forever. And the problem was I spawned it so close that it was within the notice of the Titan, and so he would attack like an infrastructure asset. But then once he destroyed that, if he saw any villagers around the Titan Gate, he would come over there and stomp and kill all the villagers. So then I would have to rebuild villagers, and then it just took forever. But eventually I got my own Titan, and then I launched that Titan along with the new expeditionary army that I had built, and then wreaked havoc. And I had naval forces that I sent over. So it was a great kind of combined arms, assault, and it was pretty awesome. So yeah, so I'm having a great time, needless to say.
So I mean, I want to ask, do you think they're overpowered? But obviously that's probably yes. But do you think it's a little bit too easy to get them, or to just to bring them out?
I do. I mean, absolutely. If depending on how, like, so for me personally, it is because I'm the type where, like, I just try and kind of turtle and like build up all of my resources and stuff. So I'm just kind of oblivious to what the enemy is doing. Um, and so yeah, like if you're playing that way and each of you is within each other's fog of war, so you're not conscious, then yeah, like if you race and get to Titan first, um, and learn the enemy's position, then you can immediately drop it. So um, so I just know that it just kind of, to me, it upsets the gameplay balance to a certain extent. It kind of forces your hand. I mean, I think it's kind of, people are going to think this is controversial, but to me, it's like a nuclear weapon. Like kind of by virtue of the fact that you have it, you're obligated to eventually use it, right? So, um, yeah, so I pulled that off, and to me, the second skirmish that I'm involved in is unfolding in a much more enjoyable way, right, than having to deal with Titans. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I may go back to turn them on, and I don't know. We'll see.
Do you play? Are you just one on one, or do you have like two or three other AIs?
So right now I'm just playing one on one because I'm only into like my second scenario, but I'll eventually start adding them. I thought about adding them on this one, but I chose not to.
Do you play the campaign at all? The story mode?
I don't. I never do in
Oh, okay.
RTSs. It's very rare that I play the camp because I think I've mentioned on the show, right? The problem I have with campaigns is that I don't like the contrivances. Like I don't like you being
Kind of.
given like 12 tactical options and types of units, and then all of a sudden you get to one point and they're like, okay, now you can only use one. I'm like, well, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
I really like in the not Modern Warfare, but the Total War series. I feel like has really like figured out the way. Like I love Conquer the World. I'm just like just give me a big map and a scenario and let me go about the world. Writing my own story and deciding what I want to do. I love like the way Rome Total War unfolds. So in RTSs, I tend to just play the skirmishes. And that's why the second skirmish is really nice. That like it would be nice if a lot more mythologies would be modeled in Age of Mythology. It's always felt like super limited. I think there's only 4 that kind of come in the box, and then I think there's some DLC out already that adds like a 5th race or something.
Yeah,
Um,
China, I think, is either out or coming out soon. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it would be nice if there were a few more mythologies modeled, kind of skewing a little more towards like a civilization type of model. But given that they're not, what I will say is really neat is because each of the mythologies, even if you're the same, they can have vastly different outcomes in the way they're kind of powered up because it essentially affects a skill tree, right? That each of you can matriculate down differently. So in this most recent skirmish, we're both Norse, but my main god is Loki, and the AI's main god is Odin, and so the progression as we proceed through each of the ages is unfolding kind of radically differently, right, in terms of the powers and things that we're latching on to. So it's pretty awesome. Have you been back to play it at all since did you mess with it?
I go back to it every once in a while. I'm oddly enough, I'm going through the campaign right now, so I haven't even done any like skirmishes yet. So, yeah, that's what back in the day. That's all I would ever do is just to go straight to the skirmishes. Like I had a friend group too, like you, where we would play all the time, and either online or on in a LAN. But now I was just like, you know what, I haven't played these type of games in a while, so I'm just going to go through the campaign and play for that for a while and possibly even go online at some point, which I know I'm probably gonna get destroyed, but you know, it's still fun though. I used to even go online before when I would play like not so much this, but like Command and Conquer games like that. So
All right, man. And War mentions I generally turtle up in these games too. So any other questions or comments on Age of Mythology Retold, Tal?
nope, nothing right now. But we got a couple StarCrafts coming out. Are you gonna play those ones come next? I think next month. Did you ever get into that?
No, never gotten a
No.
StarCraft fan.
Yeah,
No,
I
and
never.
and my understanding is again they're one of those RTSs that is very highly oriented around tank rushing, which just like is a big turn off for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I had never played them originally, but one of my friends got me into it. I think last year, a couple of years ago, for StarCraft 2. So I actually wasn't too bad because I think I tried the original one, the first one, like back when it original came out. I was like, I just couldn't get into it for some reason. Like I was coming off of Command and Conquer, and I think it was just too different. It was just a little bit too different. But then when I was playing with my friend, I was like, oh, yeah, it's not too bad. So I don't know. I'll probably try it again when they come out, when they re-release.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You never know. Never say never. On to segment 2. Let's go through the week's news. First thing to run down is a bit of PC hardware news. TCL's OLED display breakthrough paves way for cheaper gaming monitors. The story over on Hot Hardware by Zach Killian. If you're reading this site, there's a solid chance that the term inkjet printer sets your teeth on edge. Don't worry, though, today's story isn't about unreliable plastic printers that take overpriced ink, but instead about Chinese display manufacturer TCL, China Star Optoelectronics Technology, or CSOT, who is using the inkjet printing process to make OLED screens. The news comes from the Omdia Korean Display Conference held last week. Mr. Bing-John Zhu, Chief of Technology Planning for TCL CSOT, made some pretty bold statements about the future of the display market and TCL's role in it. The short version is that the company expects OLED market share to grow rapidly over the next 6 years, and that it will capture a significant part of that market with its new IJP OLED technology. So while I listen to this, I have mixed feelings about it. Look, if OLEDs come radically down in price, that would be great. And I think OLED monitors, like in like large scale variety, so talking about like 32-inch monitors, kind of like the Samsung Odyssey that I'm on now, are I think creeping down into like the $600-$700 range. And then obviously if you want a 34-inch ultra wide at 3440 by 1440p, you're probably going to be paying a little bit upwards of $700-800. But so like, look, if these things come down into $500-$600 territory, that would be great, like as a standing price, not like when they're on sale. What I worry a little bit about with this inkjet printer approach is I know it's OLED, but man, it just gives me TFT vibes. And I feel like, this is a way to come about making, OLED, like there's no point in making OLED screens if the OLED screens suck, right? They're like every OLED to me, even the baseline cheapy OLED, should one come into existence, should be immediately better than like all but like the absolute best IPS displays. Like it should go TFT, VA, IPS, OLED. And so if OLEDs come out that are inkjet printed that are, only marginally better, or only marginally better than like a mid-grade IPS screen, and can be equaled, by even the top end VA screens, then I'm like, I don't know that there's a ton of point to that. But the interesting thing is too, though, if TCL pulls this off, then not only are you getting to less expensive OLED screens, but then you also have the potential of just upsetting the TV market as well, and coming up with some big, large scale OLEDs. So one of the displays I have is like a 43-inch display. That's it's 4K capable. I run it at 2560 by 1440p. It's a 144 hertz display, and so if I could get that in an OLED as a PC monitor, because I just don't want like a TV down here in the studio, then that would be awesome. So we'll just see how it goes. Right now, TCL is focusing on making smaller scale displays, so medium sized displays. Right now, they're specifically rolling them out in a 14-inch laptop is their first kind of target. So that's pretty exciting too. Like if we get to a point where laptops, although for me handhelds have kind of displaced what I the part of my gear array that a gaming laptop would normally occupy. But hey, look, if laptop screens get prices down to a point where slapping OLED screens on them becomes an easier thing, that would be great too. I mean, Tao, do you have? So I know you have a Steam Deck. I have the Steam Deck OLED. Do you have the OLED?
Yeah, I had got the OLED when I got mine.
So look, I mean, we're slapping OLEDs on handhelds, and we're able to do that because they're small, right? And they don't take up, they're not going to be as expensive as a 14, 15, 16 inch. But like as TCL has done with this 14 inch, if they get less expensive, that becomes more of a possibility. So next story in the rundown is over on PC Gamer. Multiplayer mech shooter Mecha Break teases a pilot combat mode where you leave the cockpit and run around like reverse Titanfall. Uh, sorry, I'm pushing the button on my mixer instead of on my keyboard. This story over on PC Gamer by it can't be okay. No, that's not the author's name. Ted Litchfield. Um, there's some other comment in there that is like looks like a rapper's name. So, in a recent video from Mecha Break developer Amazing Season, company CEO Chris Kwok revealed that a pilot combat mode where you leave your mech and explore the battlefield on foot is part of the studio's long-term plan for the game after its release in 2025. The video features Kwok addressing common fan questions and requests in an interview format and begins with an overview of how Amazing Season plans on expanding Mecha Break's pilot and mech customization. The real heat comes at about the 3-minute mark, with Kwok explaining how players will get to explore their mech's hangar and adjoining facilities at launch, with battlefield on foot options coming later down the line. So the whole reason I'm paying attention to this is because, yes, I mean, your relationship to Titanfall 2, sure, that's great. What I'm really looking forward to is this notion that we're maybe soon to get a thing that brings back the zeitgeist of MechWarrior 3, which to me was the last time that series was really great. Maybe to a slightly lesser extent, Heavy Gear. I loved Heavy Gear, but not everyone did, or at least Heavy Gear 2. So I've been keeping an eye on Mecha Break, and Mecha Break is multiplayer, with PvP, and so that sounds pretty exciting because then I get my Chrome Hounds kind of like effect, which is again there's my progression was MechWarrior 3, Heavy Gear 2, Chrome Hounds, and to me Chrome Hounds was like the pinnacle of multiplayer, and I talked a little bit about the 360 zeitgeist, so I had a lot of that in there too. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Tao, I know I blew by the TCL's OLED, but that's also because I wanted to get my first 2 news stories out of the way. Any questions or comments on either the OLED story or on Mecha Break story?
No, I'd seen this game here and there. I didn't even know about it until I think I saw it on Steam at one point. So it's actually kind of cool that that they're doing something like this. It doesn't look like, and for what it is now, it's just more of like like your hub world, I guess, or hub area where you can do this. So it's not obviously it's not technically like Titanfall because you can't jump out and start shooting other people's mechs and stuff, but it's still kind of cool that they could do stuff like this. Kind of reminds me of when now I forgot the name of that. Elite Dangerous kind of did the same thing where you can get out of your ship and now you can explore planets and stuff like you can in um, No Man's Sky and stuff like that. They're kind of adding on stuff that you could do within the game itself. So it's kind of nice that they start doing stuff like that.
Yeah, they did say it first will be rolled out in baseline as an ability to roll around your base, but eventually it will also be deployed into actual battlefield combat.
Nice.
So I'm sorry, the name that I saw that threw me off was Baby Diva, which I guess is an Overwatch character. It caught me off guard because I
Yeah.
just haven't seen it like written before.
Oh yeah, it's just DVA. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess there's a similar mechanic for that character in Overwatch, I guess.
Yeah, she has one of her abilities is where she jumps out. She jumps out of the mech that she's in, and then it just like shoots forward and explodes. So it pretty much takes out anybody in the way. So
Very cool. Very cool. Tal, you've got the third story in the rundown.
yeah, so this is I like my legal news stories. So this is not necessarily like a something against the company per se, but more of kind of game preservation. So then this is from Ars Technica, from Kyle Orland. So headline is: Video game libraries lose legal appeal to emulate physical game collections online. Earlier this year reported that the video game archivists asking for a legal DMCA exemption to share internet accessible emulated versions of their physical game collections was researchers. So they're they're just talking about if someone wants to is looking to I don't know, do some kind of story or something on an old game that they don't happen to have, and they don't have to travel miles or like states or countries or whatever to get a copy of the game. They can access it online. Well, the U.S. Copyright Office announced today, which was back on the 25th, that they were denying the request, forcing researchers to travel to far-flung collections for access to the often rare physical copies. In addition to the decision, they said the Registry of Copyrights for the Library of Congress sided with the ESA, Entertainment Software Association, and others who argued that the proposed remote access could serve as legal loophole for a free-to-access online arcade that could harm the market for classic game re-releases. And then one of the other kind of comments they said here, while proponents are correct that some old games will not have a reissue market, they can see that there's a healthy market for other reissued games and that the industry has been making, and in quotes, greater concerted efforts to reissue games. Sure. Okay. And then kind of a retort from the other side, not from the Library of Congress. In the statement issued response to the decision, the VGHF, which I'm trying to find what that stands for here. I can't find it right now, but anyways, the VGHF called out lobbying efforts by rights holder groups, excuse me, that continue to hold back progress for researchers. So I saw this and I was like, okay, well, they're not getting access to stuff, and they can they'll find an area for it. But I didn't realize like they have to like people are trying to look for these old games and stuff. It's like they're literally like going to a library to try to check it out, or going to some kind of maybe old game store or something to look for these games. And I get it. These companies are trying to protect their games and stuff like that. But this is not like they mentioned like it's an open arcade, like hopefully, and obviously, yeah, there's gonna be people out there that might like steal this stuff and try to emulate it and put it online. But hopefully, this association, the VJHF, is gonna put in, kind of, I guess, checks and stuff. And I guess that was kind of the other thing that they mentioned in the Library of Congress, where they kind of they're saying the VJHF just gave kind of a generic explanation of what they're going to do to try to protect, these games online. It's like, okay, like, and I guess they're going to try later on to. I don't know if they're going to do another appeal or if they're going to do some other kind of uh, legal battle of some sort to try to do that, to try to get this going again. I think in 3 years. I'm trying to look here in the article. I think it's like every 3 years they can try, because I think this is the second time they've tried to do the same thing. So I just was kind of interesting how just some of the wording that both sides were using, because later on they're talking to the lawyer of the VGHF too, and he kind of just echoes what the main guy was saying about them trying to just trying to preserve video games. So I just thought it was kind of an interesting article. I don't know if you had any thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to a few weeks ago. There was, Nintendo's been going around doing a big crackdown on channels that have not channels. I'm sorry, but on emulators, right? Who are emulating different generations of Nintendo games, and what we think that it's because the Switch 2 may have maybe coming out with some type of emulation that allows it to play a lot of the old Nintendo games. And so there's and and on the Digital Foundry podcast, one of I think it was Alex, I think, I'm not absolutely certain, so I'm not trying to, blame him, but, if the comments were his. But in general, it's not blame. It's just I want to just point out my disagreement. There was a voice track there of he felt that, in instances where a game company, um, you know, puts up some legal barrier to game preservation, then that kind of justifies piracy. And for me personally, I just don't feel like piracy is ever justified under any circumstance. And I'll walk that back a little bit, except under the circumstance where you have at some point paid for a license to the game. And I don't think like if you paid for a license to the game like 20 years ago that authorizes you to pirate it 20 years later. But I feel like if you've actually recently obtained like a license to the game, and you can't access it, right, because of some inconvenience that that the vendor has thrown up, then maybe, yeah, yay verily, but like it wouldn't be cool for me to go back to a game. It would be cool for me to go back and find like a ROM of No One Lives Forever or Freelancer, which are two games that right now are caught up in licensing IP hell, and nobody can release a remaster or whatever. I don't think that it would be cool for me to go out and pirate those two games that I paid for, in the early 2000s or whatever, just because I can't rebuy them. Right. That's just me. And that's my own value system and judgment system. I'm not saying that, for anybody who does that is criminal. And I cast aspersions on them. I will say I don't have a huge amount of consideration for people who, particularly big influencers who have big followings, who stand on squares like that in an effort to advocate piracy, like not to pirate themselves, but to say everyone else should go do it. There's like a threshold to that I'm just not into. But what I will say is, when there is not a case where somebody pirating a thing actually causes you impact, right, to the developers and the publishers, where you have no valid concern that this is somehow going to harm your business, where you're just doing it just to be a jerk. And in the instances where there are all these copyright holding companies, right, that do nothing than hold on to the IP for the purposes of suing people, right? So just like all these, trademark farm people, right, who were causing lots of consternation. I mean, what that's really doing is it's really in those cases, those people were really stifling innovation, right? Because they were holding on to patents, they were holding on to trademarks, they were holding on to whatever, preventing anybody from implementing anything that really wasn't driven or derived from that actual patent. Because very often those patents really weren't anything in terms of like particularly unique creative thought. And as we say in the gaming industry, like at some point, like every game is a derivation, right, from some other idea that somebody else implemented, now 50 years into the history of the gaming industry. So I just don't know, those things I think, aren't warranted, on the corporate side. I think the thing that's interesting is every country doesn't have the same regime that we do. And so other countries have different copyright laws, they have different patent laws. And again, patents don't, play as hard, this, but they have different IP law. And so I just wonder how long, and there is collaboration amongst these international organizations. We talked about this, right, with the FTC trials, how the FTC cooperates with the EU's antitrust, anti-competition board, and they talk to the CMA, and we talk to the Canadians, like, and they're all like a big cohort, right, that coordinates and collaborates. I just wonder how long this is going to go on before we land on some more realistic implementations of like an international standard, and approach to this, rather than in my mind, the draconian approach that we take, which is, I'm just going to say it, is just very heavily corporate siding. And when you talk about copyright and the history of copyright, the fact is that any journalism professors will tell you, any literary professors will tell you, copyright was not created to protect authors. It was created to protect publishers. It was created to protect publishers who, often, got like really, so I want to say really cringeworthy ownership deals over an IP that a creative mind had created, that they did nothing to contribute to, but it was made to protect their revenue stream and their corporate interests. And yet once again is another matter of the American legal system, the American judiciary, the American legislature, protecting the rights of a big corporation, not protecting the rights of an artist or creator. And so you have these rules being put up in place with always the justification, where we're trying to protect like the creator. I'm like, no, you're not. You're trying to protect the corporation and revenue and people getting bonuses. So it's always interesting. I don't even know where we are. Okay. Any other comments on that news story, Tal?
No, yeah, the copyright thing you could probably talk about for that's like a whole nother podcast. Talking about copyright stuff,
Right.
as we've seen, I think this year actually. So
All right, let's move on to the next news story. Z8, back to more hardware, PC hardware news. Z890 motherboards are having instability issues with Windows 11 24H2, BIOS updates, or disabled iGPU-D required to update Windows. This is a big story to me because the whole point, all the sturm and drang about Windows 11 24H2 is all about really getting performance out of these new CPUs that are coming out, predominantly driven by AMD, because the Ryzen 9000 series, Zen 5 CPUs, a lot of their performance lift is heavily dependent upon their new branching algorithm, and it is dependent upon uncorking of certain security constraints that were resident within Windows 11 that have been changed and updated in Windows 11 24H2. And so the way to get the best, most optimized performance out of those chips is to be on Windows 11 24H2. It's part of the reason why when those CPUs landed, they did not have the big performance gains that people were looking for, because Microsoft had not rolled out those enhancements. They had held them back. Apparently, it seems like they hadn't told AMD that, and so when AMD released those CPUs, the unbridled constraint that needed to be unlocked from Windows was not there. They came in achieving less than they had advertised, and people were upset. So, now Windows 11 24H2 has now been rolling out. We're starting to see better performance from these chips. There's also reports that some Intel chips are also seeing performance lifts. And so people who are on Windows 11 and are PC enthusiasts and are buying new CPUs are heavily interested in this. But now there's this problem with Intel motherboards. The issue seems to impact Intel Core Ultra 2005 series, which were announced going on maybe 2 weeks ago, and are here due out, I think, this week. The issue seems to impact Intel Core Ultra 200S series CPUs specifically, particularly with XC-LBG iGPUs enabled. And so these are the integrated ARC style GPUs that come on a lot of these chips. So this story over on Tom's Hardware by Christopher Harper reports recently emerged that a significant portion of Intel Z890 motherboards are impacted by severe Windows 11 24H2 update issues. The first major report was posted by Spanish PC hardware site, I don't know if I can pronounce that, El Chapuzas Informatico, I'm probably butchering how that's pronounced, citing an Asus Tech support response. The issue has been narrowed down to users of Intel Core Ultra 200S series CPUs, since those CPUs still have integrated Iris Xe LPG graphics. So I apologize; these are the older. This is the older integrated graphics option, because I thought Intel had advanced to where they were starting to integrate lower performing ARC type graphics GPUs. So those CPUs still have integrated Iris Xe LPG graphics that are apparently playing badly with this update. While desktop users are less likely to rely on integrated graphics than laptop users, it's still problematic for Intel to have such a major issue with its integrated graphics plaguing customers during Arrow Lake launch week. And so, just to make sure, I think these are Arrow Lake, even though it's because I thought these were the Arrow Lake S processors, so I thought these were the desktop parts. So I'm losing the thread just a little bit here, but the point is that Arrow Lake is the new not enthusiast, but new, I guess I would say, PC consumers who are concerned about performance, who will buy these series of chips. It's supposed to be the chip that's supposed to go head to head with those AMD Ryzen 9000 series chips that I talked about before, but apparently they're having issues specifically transferring your BIOS. I'm trying to see. It doesn't really say what the issues are. I guess it's just stability. So what I would assume that means is you periodically getting crashes, extending anywhere, going anywhere from an application crash back to the desktop, which to me is kind of the normal thing we should expect to sometimes happen on Windows, all the way up to the thing that we don't like, which is a blue screen, just an uncontrollable error that takes down your whole machine. That would be less enjoyable. They mentioned it has included BSODs for Western Digital NVMe drive users, a strange 8.63 gigabyte cache error, and even some easy anti-cheat compatibility problems, rendering titles like Asphalt 8 unplayable. I'm sorry. So those are other problems that are affecting the launch of Windows 11 24 H2. So lots of problems. And the issue here is affecting not necessarily directly affecting the CPUs, but the part that lots of people are pairing with the CPUs in an effort to again extract high ends of performance. These Z890 motherboards. I think, and I don't have it memorized, but I think there are two. I think there are Z890 and Z690 motherboards. I think Z690 was the last generation, so Meteor Lake motherboards. Actually, Meteor Lake's not compatible because this is an 1851 socket. So, but I thought there were two. I think there are two motherboards that are available to run Arrow Lake S processors on. I think this is the higher end one. So it's just impacting the types of customers that you don't want it to impact because they're the people who are going to get the most cranky because they spent the most money on new rigs. So want to make sure that word got out so people would at least pull the thread on it before they went out and purchased these boards. These boards are not inexpensive. I think I've seen prices upwards of $500. So I mean, between the motherboard and the CPU, you're probably spending like $1,000 on the CPU and the motherboard. Maybe the motherboards are a little cheaper than that. I haven't looked at admittedly, I haven't looked at them. If I saw the price, I saw the price like quickly, like out of the corner of my eye, because I'm personally targeting, at least at the time, I was personally targeting a Ryzen 9000 chip for my own next build. So just consumer beware. Tao, any comments on that news story?
No, yeah. I mean, personally, it doesn't really affect me because obviously I got desktops. I don't have any laptops, any newer or older laptops like that. So nothing right
now. No, I think, and that's my point of confusion. I'm pretty sure Arrow Lake S is the desktop part, and so this talks about Intel Core Ultra 200S series CPUs, but I thought those CPUs for their integrated graphics had ARC style graphics. I could be wrong about that, but they apparently have the older Iris Xe LPG graphics. Um, I don't know if that's across the entire product line, but I believe these are the desktop part. It's just the desktop part that's being released with older graphics because those consumers are much more likely to be pairing those with a high end GPU. So I guess that's the route that Intel went for integration. But I believe these are the desktop part. And the way to get around this is to do a BIOS update. I'm sure all the vendors, Asus, ASRock, Gigabyte, MSI. Yeah, it says fortunately all major vendors know this issue and should already have it patched for your board. Look, BIOS is still kind of a stomach clenching thing for me to go through. I really tend to not do it unless I know there's something critical that needs to be fixed on my motherboard. It is not the thing that I do just because it has gotten a ton easier now than it used to be 20 years. Go back, a little bit more than a decade. You used to have to pull down the BIOS like on a thumb drive. I mean, even getting BIOS updates enabled over thumb drives was a relatively advanced technique that eventually came on. You used to be able to have to pull this thing down on like a floppy and boot into DOS and apply that. It's gotten a heck of a lot more easy. You could typically pop out to like your BIOS shell these days and apply an update. In some cases, there's just like a motherboard Windows running application. And like I said, a lot easier now, but still not something that I go into with for the faint of heart because it still has the tendency to potentially blow things up in your face. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys sticking with us through the tech news. Let's go ahead and run into segment 3, our regular rundown and round robin. I've got the first report out in this, and we'll go pretty quickly because we're definitely a little bit over. I've been getting back to Destiny 2. My feelings on Destiny 2 right now is I'm just teetering on the point of disappointment. I'm prepared to be disappointed but I'm not disappointed yet because there's just things I don't know. Um, what I did was I've gone back at Destiny 2 as a new player basically. I've deleted all my old characters, started a new character. I played as much as I could in the new light campaign structure. I seem to have like run into like a roadblock with progressing any further in that campaign structure. I did complete all 7 stories in the timeline kind of portal area that's in the upper right hand corner of the star map now. Although there are things there that are labeled as campaign, the fact of the matter is that they are kind of like little abbreviated, kind of hybridized, like morsels of what the old campaign was for like Shadowkeep and Forsaken and some of the, and I guess Lightfall and Beyond Light. And so they don't really run you through the actual campaign. They say campaign, but they're really just one mission, and the mission is like this weird hybrid where like you'll be dropped in and you'll go like, oh yeah, I remember this mission. But then when you clear like the first challenge and like mini boss or so, and it transitions into the next scene is like something from like another mission from that original campaign. So it like if the original campaign was missions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you will get like a segment of the battle for like mission 1, mission 3, mission 4, mission 6, right? So it just kind of hops around all over the place, and that's fine. What the next thing I'm teed up to go do, and this is where I'm prepared to be disappointed, is I figure that's for like new players who want to kind of experience whatever parts of the campaign they missed in an accelerated format. But what I really want to do is I really want to go back and play the full campaigns with my new character, and then hopefully clear whatever light level, because I think I'm hitting a glass ceiling now. So I'm also hoping to hit those and then be able to like level up in the way I would normally expect that I should. So I've played all of the timeline missions. I've gotten some like achievement and tribes and stuff for that. So like I now know what those things are. Now what I want to know is, okay, I own Shadowkeep. I have Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep, if you go into one view, and this is another problem with Destiny 2, there's like 8 different ways to view status and progression. There's one screen you go to. If you see Shadowkeep, I can see that I own Shadowkeep. I can see that it has a check mark in it. I can see that it's still available, supposedly. So the next question is okay, when I go to that mission and launch it, is it going to allow me to play the full campaign? And if I can, then that's great. If I can't, that's where I'm going to start to be a little salty, because I'm like, and I know that they've taken away content, and I get that. But we're talking about a game that has had a 7-year life. I expect there to be kind of a cutoff. If they vaulted something, then that I understand you can't get back to that content. But if they haven't vaulted it, or if they vaulted it like a second time, that's where I'm going to be like a little cranky. And I'm like, because now the game becomes, well, what content can I get to, right? And that should be laid out more clearly than it is. And I'm seeing a lot of like things from like old lapsed players who have come back who are experiencing the same thing. Lots of players who are running into like a bug in the Forsaken part of the timeline where they can't progress because once you're in like the security zone, like Cade never opens the second door because there's some type of bug. So we'll see how it goes. If I can continue down the path with some speed bumps and inconvenience, then okay, I'll get over that. If I've just gone back just to be proven that I can't actually play the game as a new player, then that's great. That's going to be a problem. Tau.
Quick question.
Yeah,
'Cause I can't
absolutely.
remember. Is Destiny 2 as just like the, I guess, base game? It's not free to play, right? Do you still pay for the base game?
It's free to play, and this is
It is free to play. Okay.
part of the thing that for me, like, is. I mean, Destiny 2 has been confusing and convoluted for a very long time, right? That's one of the complaints. That's one of the reasons, like, I think a lot of us, like all of us on the crew, like, fell off of it at some point. And so the problem now is there's a lot of free content, but to me, it's not readily clear, like, what's free and what you paid for. I think the reason that timeline is less than I wanted it to be is because it's free. And so if it's free content, I totally understand why it's kind of encapsulated the way it is, right? And why it says campaign, but it's just like an abbreviated, accelerated, like little morsel of what the actual campaign is. But when I own the campaign and the campaign is showing in the UI as I have it and it's available and I own it and it's checkmarked, and there's two different quests, right? Because there's a Shadowkeep like mini quest like in this thing labeled as a campaign in the timeline, so I can revisit it as like a memory, right? And that's fine. But then it shows up in another part of the UI as a full campaign and available via a separate quest path, right? And so I'm like, the only way that makes sense is if I can still play the full campaign, right? That it's okay then to me for it to show up in the UI twice in different ways. But if it shows up in the UI twice in different ways, but when I go into it, it just gives me access to the same content, then that's where I'm going to be a little bothered. So you have been continuing to play an anime game.
Yeah, still getting through Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I was playing that on my Steam Deck this week. I had been, and it's still there actually, farming the Zenny, which is the in-game, and I think actually story like money within the world. There's like a way you can like kind of farm. You go back and play a certain mission within the campaign, and it gives you a good amount, of, like 300,000 of the in-game currency. So you just kind of keep doing that. And, I was just doing that so I can unlock different characters and different outfits, and there's like I think there's like audio stuff in there. I'll probably do that like last to unlock that stuff. But like power ups and stuff you can put on your character, customize and stuff like that. So I was doing that, and I did a little bit of that. Like, I was basically just trying to see if it was still in there because there was an update this past week, and it's still in there. So I don't know. I don't know if they don't care because it's that part of it. That's just part of the campaign. So it's not hurting like the online or anything. So, so I was doing that for a little bit, but then I started to just go back and go through the campaign as Goku, and I finished up the Cell Saga. So I'll be jumping into I think Majin Buu next, I believe, if I remember my Dragon Ball timeline there. So actually before I continue with Goku, I'm going to go back because I was kind of switching between him, Vegeta, and Piccolo. And just using those characters to kind of keep them somewhat around the same area in the story because you basically just follow the same story, but just different, those different characters' point of views. So I'll go back and do those other characters also. But yeah, just having good anime fighting action. So I'm just having a lot of fun with it.
Very cool. So I hate to rush you, but I do definitely want to get in a quick discussion because in our third point of serendipity, we have both been playing No Man's Sky, and we both actually been playing it on PC. So my talk through of what my experience has been going back, and I think this is the second week in a row that I've talked about going back. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's my first week, although I've played a couple sessions.
I think you talked about it last week, but I don't think you just mentioned that you're going to jump back into it.
Yeah. So my experience has been fairly limited. It's mostly learning curve, which is I always have to go through that every time I go back. But it went pretty well this time. Fortunately, I was on a like not super threatening planet from an atmospheric perspective. It didn't throw me into that do loop of like I leave my ship, I'm immediately exposed to high temperatures, right? Then I gotta like gather, this to make sure I got enough oxygen, and then this to make sure I got enough cooling, and then this to like so it was a kind of leisurely romp. It's actually a place where I've built up a little base. So I had that available. What I was struggling through was I needed to build my first fusion reactor, I think, to power my base because like the portal, the space portal, like needed energy. So, and I really got tripped up because of me forgetting the difference between things that needed to be refined versus things that needed to be crafted, and the fact that you do crafting out of your inventory menu versus you do the refinery based out of the portable refinery menu. I think I'm getting to a point, and this is what I probably need to do to reduce the time on this learning. I think I'm getting to a point where I can kind of write it down as like a note and put it maybe on a sticky and put it like on my screen somewhere, because I have to do this every single time. This is the first time that like it really kind of locked in and sank in for me, and I'm like, to a certain extent, I'm able to, like, even though it's been a few days since that session, I'm able to kind of rattle off that do loop through my head. I don't know what has been. Have you been? Did you go back to play like the spooky content that released this month?
Yeah, I did the new expedition they actually just released this past week. I actually started that. I think I've only done and actually finished, I think, one other expedition, and I think there's been maybe a dozen, 10 or 12 or so altogether that they've done. And I think usually they kind of space them out because they give you like special things that you can get either for your character costume or like a special ship, which is you get, I think, with this expedition. But yeah, I started and I'm like completely lost because you like basically when you do an expedition, you go into it and you basically starting from scratch. It's kind of like um Destiny, not Destiny, Diablo 4, when you do the seasons and you kind of, start a new character. It's kind of like that. You can bring not items, but material over with you, but you don't get access to that material until you can get off the planet you start off and go to, I don't know if it's like the regular space station or the big alien one, like kind of the hub world for online. I forgot what it's called, Atlas or something like that. It's been a while. So I'm kind of stuck in this one little area. I'm like a little island, and there's like just water all around me. I don't know if everybody starts off like that, but I can see some other islands like off in the distance. But this island I start off and has limited resources, so I'm kind of like getting that stuff and then kind of just waiting because I got to wait for it to respawn. And I'm actually contemplating if I should just like go off and go to one of those other islands and see if they have more material or do something else. I don't know, but I'll continue on that because the ship that they have now is it's kind of cool. Almost looks like like a Millennium Falcon-ish kind of a spaceship design. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So that's why I wanted to kind of go through that. But yeah, I usually, and this is not like a major update. They just did, I think obviously they do like quality of life stuff, but other than the expedition, it's just like quality of life stuff they did within this update. There's still the Worlds Part 2 that this has to come out at some point. I don't know if that's going to be released this year. I think they said it was supposed to be released this year. And that kind of the first part kind of overhauled like the water and some of the mobs and stuff that you encounter and kind of this big world planet changes that they did. And there's supposed to be a second part, so hopefully that'll come out soon. But yeah, so far just doing the expedition. And so for your playthrough now, so this is a save that you went back to, or is this like a brand new uh create character you created or like playthrough?
It is a save that I went back to, but when I did that save, that was like a reboot for me.
Oh, for that time.
I was just like, I've just been away for too long to pick up like an old, so I just blew the old game save away and kind of started over. So that start over was recent. It was this year, and I played a little bit then, and I'm picking it back up now. So it is a pickup, but it's a pickup of a relatively recent reboot.
Nice. So, and that was still the starting planet you went back to?
Now I think I've gone on to my second planet.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so it's not the same planet where I discovered the ship. So this is a planet that I've flown into and landed.
Okay.
But I'm setting up my first like major like star base or whatever.
Yeah, just a regular base. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because you mentioned how like the atmosphere wasn't too bad, but it, I did start over new. I think earlier last year on one of I think the PC actually when I bought it for PC because I was playing on a console before. And it is a lot better now when you first start off. It's not as it's not as punishing as it was like when I first bought the game, and I think DB2 can attest to that. Where it's like and like immediately you're about to die, and I think I died a couple times when I was doing that first playthrough just because I didn't well obviously I didn't know what was going on, I didn't know what to do. But now even if that was the case now, I could probably like survive at least for a little for more than just a few minutes or whatever. But yeah, it's a good once again, it's another game like Minecraft and stuff. You kind of go, well, at least for me, I go back to every, a few times a year. Just if there's a major update or sometimes just get an inkling to, hey, I want to play some kind of sci-fi, game and not necessarily a shooter or anything like that. I just want to kind of chill. So yeah, it's definitely a good game for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I even started originally playing, back when it was still kind of a harsh startup, right? Um, but then I've been playing since since that was softened. But I will say, like, it is still possible for you to wind up. But now the way it is where you spawn is. I mean, it's always been random, but it used to always be like a harsh startup wherever you spawn. Now it is possible for you to spawn. You can get a lucky spin on the roulette wheel, right, and get like an easy start. It is still possible to spawn on a harsh planet, but that do loop is slower, and it's a little more, and the tutorials are better, and it's a little more like reason. Like before, man, like that do loop was so tight. It's like as soon as you solved one problem, I mean, it was like a disaster movie. Like as soon as you solved one problem, like a new problem was immediately presented. And
Yeah.
I think you have a little more time to breathe this time now.
Yeah, you get your ship, but then the ship's all damaged, and it's like, oh, now there's no shields and there's no other stuff. Yeah, it's a lot better now. But yeah, it's yeah, I love the game.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that their new game comes out this year, but I got a feeling it's probably not going to come out until next year. Light No Fire was their announcement from I think this past year, but we'll see if that comes about.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for us. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. I gotta get out of here and get some ready to do some travel. So thanks a lot for everybody who happened to swing through the live stream and participate. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for everybody who happens to swing by and watch the video on demand version of this show in archive, in the syndicated version, if you will. We appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. We'll be back next week for, what is that? Is that November 4th? I think that'll be, or maybe 3rd. 3rd, first, second, 3rd. Yep. For next week's show, there's some big AAA thing coming out next week. I don't know if I know Horizon Zero Dawn remake is out next week.
Let me see. Search.
Yeah, there's something else dropping next week. I'll let you.
Let me see.
I'll let you look that up while I'm continuing to riff.
Let's see. Obviously, we got Call of Duty's already out. That's this week. Oh, this is for a couple years ago. That's not gonna work. It's due November 2024. So obviously, Google didn't like just November release. Okay, this should be a good list. And that's a video. That's great. Let's see. Yeah, I'll be playing some more, obviously, Call of Duty this coming week. So that'll be my thing. So we got Red Dead Redemption. The remake's coming out this week on 29th.
It's something else.
Mario and Luigi comes out the 7th. So that's the following week. Yeah, it looks like. And I think Stalker's not until. Stalker 2 is not until the end of the month, I believe. Yeah, it looks like just those two. At least on this site that I found.
I thought certain I saw something else come across my windshield. It's coming out next month or this week.
This upcoming week, yeah.
Is it a Sonic game? I could be wrong.
Albatross, yeah, no, that's nothing big.
Oh, Dragon Age. That's what it is. Dragon Age: The Veiled
Guard. Oh, yeah.
October
Why
31st.
did they have that one? And that's weird. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't have that on the list. I guess that was still October. I was looking at November, so.
Shadows of the Dam Hella Remastered is out this week. And like I said, their Horizon Zero Dawn remake.
Yeah.
So, or not remake. What do I want to call it?
Remaster?
Yes.
Clock Tower.
Yes.
Which is a good, well, I should say good. I should say well known. Looks like that's a remake or remaster. Clock Tower Rewind.
Huge apologies for not having that at the tip of my tongue and for us taking a while to get, it nailed. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see who onboards to that. I don't necessarily have that in my windshield.
I think DB said he was interested in that. It looks interesting, but I mean, I know I'm going to be playing Call of Duty now for quite a while, so I probably won't pick it up for a while, or pretty much anything else. To be honest with you, these next few weeks.
Yeah, that one is definitely a wait and see for me. We'll see how well it sticks to the landing. Unfortunately, for me, my most anticipated game of this fall, Unknown Nine Awakening, has not landed well. So it's unfortunate. So probably the next thing that is kind of stylistically, has my eye is Expedition 33. So we'll see how that does. I can't remember when that game is at. I want to say that that's early next year, maybe, but we'll try and refresh that. Thanks so much. Like I said, for everybody who happened to swing by, we will be back next week. Up next for me personally is just more Destiny 2, and really want to pull the thread on Shadowkeep and all the content that I paid for, and see if I can still get back to it. Like I said, we'll be back next week, and DBQ, or no, Tao, you will be host for next week. So then DBQ and I will be flying co-pilot. So until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, play the games that you like, come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast, the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, an occasional guest on the Damage Per Second podcast. Here with me tonight has been my co-host, Mr. Towmaster99. DBQ will be back next week. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.